日本政府の対中認識は甘い、と言わざるを得ません。中国が脅威であることは、バイデン政権でも認めるほど明らかな真実です。しかし、日本政府の防衛白書は中国について安全保障上の強い懸念という評価にとどめており、北朝鮮の弾道ミサイルと同じ脅威と明言することを避けています。アメリカでは、バイデン政権ですら、中国のことを追いつきつつある競争相手で、他の何者より優先すべき脅威であると判断し、27ページのレポートを公表しています。それでも脅威認識として不十分だという声もあります。今回の動画では、保守評論家、マーク・レビンと、元国家情報長官、ジョン・ラトクリフが、アメリカの中国脅威論を解説します。
Hello, America. I'm Mark Levin, and this is Life, Liberty, and Levin. We have two great guests this evening. John Ratcliffe, former Director of National Intelligence, and of course, Newt Gingrich. But I want to talk to John Ratcliffe. I've been itching to do this for some time. I'm looking at this threat assessment that was put out this week, John, from the Biden administration, and now they have finally realized that China is, quote, near peer competitor, an unparalleled priority. Now, you were the Director of National Intelligence. You were banging the pots and pans. You were trying to tell the American people, the Democrats in Congress, that we have a huge issue, a huge problem on our hands with communist China. You think they realize it now?
Well, Mark, I think they realized it all of last year. As you said, I spent much of the past year saying that China is our greatest national security threat by far, militarily, economically, technologically. That China and China alone is intending to supplant the United States. But I, as you recall, received a lot of pushback on that because it wasn't the political narrative that the left wanted. They wanted Russia to be the bad guy, and I was accused of trying to create a false equivalency with Russia when the intelligence was really clear. Mark, I felt so strongly about it that I did something that directors of national intelligence haven't done before. I wrote an op-ed saying China is our #1 national security threat. And as you correctly point out, now that the election's over, I think the intelligence can't be ignored. And what you saw was a 27-page unclassified report put out very clearly saying, really tracking the op-ed that I wrote, saying that China and China alone is our greatest national security threat.
Now let's dig into this a little bit. We see what China has done to Hong Kong, once the freest place on the face of the earth and really the most prosperous. They've destroyed it. And they're devouring it in violation of their deal with the United Kingdom. We see what they've done in the South China Sea. They claim it as their own. They've built these military islands throughout the South China Sea, and they threaten any navy and any ship that comes through that area. They have their sights now, and this is gravely important, on Taiwan. They even threaten Japan. They threaten Vietnam. Vietnam now has sort of cozied up to us because they're concerned about the way the Chinese are laying claim to navigable waters right off of Vietnam. And this is just the beginning. This is an extraordinarily aggressive country right now, isn't it?
Very aggressive, and it's what we saw and what we countered in the Trump administration. And I think what you're seeing, all the things that you're talking about now, Mark, are a reflection that China's now going to test the waters. They're going to test Biden's leadership and see if there's the kind of pushback that there was from the Trump administration. In the Trump administration, we never had Chinese officials come to U.S. soil and really disrespect our top diplomats, which we saw last month in Anchorage, Alaska. And we didn't see what China's doing in the Straits, in the South China Sea, flying over Taiwan and really threatening their sovereignty and doing all of the other things. Those are things that they knew that if they engaged in, that the repercussions from a Trump administration, that a president would have acted significantly and severely in response to that. And I think that they're testing to see whether or not the Biden administration is going to do that. And the early returns are that they're not. I mean, the Biden administration, came out with rhetoric that was somewhat strong on China, but the actions haven't reflected that. And we talked about this threat assessment. There was a hearing on Capitol Hill about this unclassified threat assessment, talking about threats in the past year. I think anyone, anywhere would recognize that the greatest threat in the world in 2020 was COVID-19, and yet in this 27-page report that the Biden administration put out, there's exactly 0 words talking about the origins of COVID-19, exactly 0 reference to the Chinese Communist Party, the cluster of cases in Wuhan, the responsibility of the party for suppressing intelligence, suppressing doctors and scientists, and the information that related to this, the transmissibility of this. 0 reference to closing off Wuhan from the rest of China, but opening it up to the rest of the world, or the propaganda campaign to blame the United States. You know, Americans want to know why, when 500,000 Americans died last year, who's responsible for that, and that China will be held responsible. And yet the early returns are that there's no action going to be taken by the Biden administration to do exactly that.
And I feel certain that the Chinese, like the Russians and the Iranians and the North Koreans, are all watching this administration. And among other things, John, the Biden administration made public its budget, a 16% growth in domestic spending, and effectively a decline in defense spending. What do I mean by that? A slight increase, but they know it's not enough to cover increases in salary and medical benefits for the United States military. So while the Chinese are moving their trajectory north in terms of their spending and their aggressiveness, we're not only flatlining, we're worse than flatlining. Does this not send a message to the communist Chinese and our other enemies and adversaries out there?
It sends a message to all of them, and it's the wrong message. Unfortunately, as you know, Mark, the Obama-Biden administration decimated our military with budgets that continued to cut into areas that we needed. We spent the last 4 years in the Trump administration rebuilding our military and regaining the superiority that we need to have. This, unfortunately, really is a reflection that the Biden administration is amounting to essentially a third Obama term, and we're going back to these budgets where our military is going to suffer